Welcome into the Sportsmemo College Basketball Betting Podcast for February 12th, Tuesday, with Robbie Vino. Rob, welcome into the podcast. How are you?
I am doing great today, Drew. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. It's $2 Tuesday at sportsmemo.com. It's a great day to check out the website. Bunch of guys up with college basketball, NBA tonight. We got in the top play tonight, 5%er for just $2. We got 5 games we're going to break down on the college basketball betting board. We got tonight in the SEC, Robbie, starting off 6-11, 6-12. LSU at Kentucky, 149 the total. This one in Lexington with Kentucky open 9.5, but money coming in on LSU. Now seeing 8, some 8.5s out there. But either way, we got 149 the total, 8.5. How would you look to bet the Tigers and Wildcats here tonight, Robbie?
Yeah, real interesting game. Two teams that have performed exceptionally in SEC play, and 2 young basketball teams. I mean, we can always apply that to Coach Calipari's team at Kentucky, but not always apply that to LSU. But they are a young basketball team led by, freshmen, sophomores here. Sprinkle in a couple upperclassmen, but the road hasn't seemed to phase LSU. I thought in a couple of spots this year, the road might catch LSU, so we'll see how they do here in Rupp Arena. Both of these teams come off of games on Saturday where they, escaped. Let's put it that way. LSU escapes Auburn with an 83-78 victory, a game that could have gone either way. And, of course, Kentucky escapes Starkville, beating Mississippi State by 4 points. So a couple days off in here. Kentucky, I made the power ratings made them a 9-point favorite, so it was in line with the opener. And as you mentioned, money has drawn to the Kentucky side, which has pushed it all the way down to 8 now. And when you look at the matchups, Drew, on the floor, and I know you like Ashton Hagans and his ability to play defense. Why wouldn't you? He's one of the best top-of-the-arc on-ball defenders that there is in college basketball right now. And it seems like Kentucky's streak, by the way, they're 8-0 against the spread in their last 8 games, but it seems like their streak began with his defensive pressure. That's really when Kentucky started to take off. But in this instance, he's matched up against Tremont Waters for LSU, who's arguably the best point guard in the SEC, a guy who not only is a threat shooting the ball, but a good assist guy. Either he shoots from distance or gets to the rim, good free throw shooter. Both of these teams filled with good free throw shooters. I tried to look at the interior play tonight, once again from a fundamental standpoint, to see if maybe Reed Travis, the veteran of the bunch here for Kentucky, memories of Stanford graduate transfer, would have some advantage. But, Naz Reid has played terrific as a freshman for LSU. And when you throw in Bigby Williams, you've got 6'10", 6'11 up front. So I think matchups all across the floor are pretty close here. The one X factor could be P.J. Washington for Kentucky. I don't know that it's worth what used to be 9 points, now down to 8. I can see people coming in and taking LSU. The only thing you would worry about, and like I say, they've passed a lot of tests on the road so far, LSU has, but can they pass this test? You got to love the job Will Wade has done as head coach. If you watch that Auburn game Saturday, Drew, and every time Auburn in fact, they started the game from the outset just scorching the nets with 3-pointers. And he's real calm on the sidelines, gets the team together, got them back in the game, and then got them ahead and got them to the finish line in that one. So I like the way Coach Wade has performed on the sidelines with this young bunch. I don't know which way I'd go here. Honestly, I don't. LSU, it plays the up-tempo. I don't know if Kentucky's defense – I have a difficult problem figuring whether or not Kentucky's defense can hold LSU scoring down or whether Kentucky will run with LSU and outscore them. So from side and total perspective, really contradictory for me. Don't know which way I could play here, but as you mentioned, certainly the money is siding with LSU early on here.
Yeah, Robbie, we got another Big Ten game here moving down the slate just a little bit. Still 7 p.m. Eastern tip. 6:21, 6:22, Michigan State at Wisconsin. This game open pick. We saw each team being favored throughout the day, depending where you were shopping. Now we're seeing a lot of 1.5s towards Michigan State, so some primarily Spartan money coming in throughout the day. This total's been the story, though, Robbie. It opened 129.5, got steamed up to I think as high as 136.5, which this time of year in college basketball, it's rare to see a 7-point move like that. Now we've had some buyback towards the under again, seeing mostly 133.5s out there. But Spartans versus Wisconsin. Wisconsin is at home. How would you look to bet this Big Ten matchup, Robbie?
Yeah, I think I would side with Wisconsin. I'd probably go against the money a little bit here. Now, that being said, the last time you and I talked college basketball, Michigan State was going to play Minnesota. They were in that 3-game losing streak, and I remember we talked about, it being very difficult to guess when a team is going to just bust out of the losing streak and destroy somebody. That is what happened with Michigan State against Minnesota the other day. They just came out from the opening tip and destroyed Minnesota. So now they're feeling a little bit better about themselves. But on the road in Madison here against this 3-point arsenal that Wisconsin has, and it's really, it took Wisconsin a little bit of time to get their footing. It's kind of like they started the season real well, went into that lull, and since Big Ten play has gone along here, they've kind of snapped out of it, but they're so multi-dimensional on offense, despite the fact that they, are what they are, play at a snail's pace. But when you have Ethan Happ, the best big man in the league inside, and then you have the 3-point arsenal on the outside, it's real tough to defend these guys. Michigan State has had some difficulty at times paying attention to detail on the defensive end. We'll see if they go into Madison and they're fully focused here tonight for Coach Izzo. But I would take my chances with this Wisconsin team and their ability in the half court, because I don't know that they'll let the game get away from them as far as pace is concerned. Michigan State much better, in my estimation, when they play up-tempo basketball from an offensive standpoint than they are in a half-court setting. Point guard play, of course, since Joshua Langford, since it was announced that he's done for the season. They had played a bunch of games without him before that announcement came. But without him now, it's somewhat noticeable in the last 4, right? Because they did lose 3 straight up. And perhaps the pressure on the guard play here is becoming, as we get into like the 20th game of the season, 21st game of the season, perhaps it's becoming a little much. This is kind of a hit-the-wall time. So we'll see how Michigan State handles the road here, Drew. But for me, when I look at these matchups and when I look at that home court edge, I like Wisconsin. A pretty good free throw shooting team as well if Michigan State has to foul late. The only thing that would scare me about playing Wisconsin is if the game were played a little quicker than you would want, if Michigan State gets it to their liking. And, the way the total moved, as you talked about earlier, from 128 all the way to a high of 136 or 136.5 at one point, the way it moved, it seems as if money's expecting the game to be played a little bit quicker and maybe a few more shots going through the basket. 68 aside would get you to 136, which would win for you right now against this current total. Can both these teams get to 68 in this game? I don't know. I kind of have my reservations about that, but I don't have any reservations about Wisconsin here. I think they're probably the right side.
All right, good breakdown, Robbie. And my breakdown's up on sportsmemo.com. 5% are up on this game, and it's the $2 Tuesday play. So for today only, this play 621-622 Michigan State, Wisconsin, you can get for just $2. Sportsmemo.com. We got 631-632 up next, Robbie. Alabama, Mississippi State, 151.5 the total, seeing 5.5. That's the Bulldogs laying in Starkville.
Yeah, and real quick before we get into that game, Drew, I don't want to let it just slide by here. For the listeners out there, Drew just talked about $2 Tuesday. 5% play is what he has up. He's our $2 Tuesday guy here today. But 11-2 over his last 13 plays, 85%. Great choice tonight if you're looking to get involved in college basketball. Drew's on quite the roll. Like I say, 11-2, last 13 plays, 85%. You're not going to beat those numbers. Those are cash makers for sure. And a 5% are up there, the highest rating that we have for play here at Sports Memo. So go ahead and get involved. 5% from Drew Martin this evening. I didn't want to let that slip by on you, Drew. I know you're like myself a little too.
Well,
we become a little
the shout out.
little humble to tout our own horns at times, but certainly for everybody listening, a great option at Sports Memo here for this evening. Now let's get back to the SEC, Alabama, Mississippi State, a game that I think is pretty interesting, Drew. And I was talking to you off air before we came on the podcast, and it was the first time this morning that I actually sat down and looked at these new net ratings that they're going to use instead of RPI when the committee meets when the selection committee meets in their room this year. Just wanted to get a gauge of where some of these teams stand. For myself, for all the years that the RPI was the major mathematical formula used, you would look at who's inside the top 40, and if you're inside the top 40, you can feel fairly safe. I know that teams outside the top 40 have been picked as at-large teams before, but generally speaking, you just want to see who's on the fringe of that 40 mark, either 5 or 6 to the good or 5 or 6 to the bad, and understand that at this time of year, these teams need wins. When you look at this game, Alabama sits at 43, Mississippi State 29. So Mississippi State a little more secure as we speak than is Alabama, albeit Mississippi State on a 2-game home losing streak here. And as I mentioned earlier, a very difficult loss to Kentucky on Saturday, a very difficult loss the game before for Mississippi State. Now, third try at the hump in a row. They get Alabama here. My power ratings made the game Mississippi State -4, so I believe that perhaps odds makers compensated toward the Mississippi State side a little bit, thinking that perhaps a team this good wouldn't drop 3 straight home conference games. I'm kind of that belief myself. Alabama, to me, has been a pleasant surprise for Avery Johnson. You like the talent that they have on this team that he's recruited, but unlike the previous 2 opponents, I don't know that Alabama is going to be able to catch Mississippi State here. I think Mississippi State comes fully focused. You love their veteran leadership, especially around the perimeter. They get good play inside. I think situationally and fundamentally, this lines up real nice for Mississippi State. The one problem that myself and probably a bunch of others have with the Bulldogs this year is the fact that Ben Howland's team just really doesn't pay attention on the defensive end the way you would think they would. They just don't ever seem to get into lockdown mode on defense. They'd rather outscore you than out-defend you. But I think this is an opponent that works in that particular philosophy. So for me, it would be Mississippi State minus the points here. I think you get a good game, a real good game out of them. Not that they haven't played good games the last 2. You just run into upper echelon conference teams and wind up losing close games. This time I think they get there, even though according to my power ratings, I'm laying a little bit of a premium price. But like I say, situationally, I think I can do that. So I'd look to lay the points here with Mississippi State.
All right, Robbie, good SEC breakdown there. We got the Big 12 coming up next, and Robbie's has his CBB upper tier game of the night available at sportsmemo.com. His 4 and 5% plays in college basketball, 29 and 20 over the last 30 days. That's just under 60%. Also on a 46 and 28 run, 62% last 16 weeks in the NBA. So seeing both college basketball and the NBA pretty good of late. But Robbie, on to the Big 12 here. We got 635, 636. Kansas State at Texas. Low total here, just 122 at Chris, 121.5 at Heritage. Seeing 2.5 or 3. That's the Longhorns laying at home, Robbie, and that's what in the Big 12 opener. This Kansas State-Texas game, I believe Texas won by 20 points, so we're not too far removed from that. I also wrote a free play up on this at sportsmemo.com. You can check that out. But Robbie, how would you look to bet Kansas State-Texas?
Yeah, it seems like every Big 12 game, Drew, is a good game, unless it involves, somebody against Oklahoma State who's really down this year. For the most, or somebody against West Virginia who's really down this year. For the most part, the rest of these teams, you can. I remember our colleague Brent Crow used to call these blender games. You just throw them all in a blender and mix it up, and whatever comes out comes out. And it's kind of that way in the Big 12 this year. These two teams are, in essence, mirror images. They both want to play defense first, and the offense at times doesn't come real easy for either one of these squads. However, I'll say this about Texas. The last couple of games, they have found some scoring punch, and I went to a couple of articles just to see if there's anything Shaka Smart has done differently the last couple of games, and really there's nothing different about Texas except that they made shots against Baylor and they made shots against West Virginia. Everybody's tended to make shots against West Virginia this year, but still for Texas to put up 84 and 75 in their last two games, that has not been commonplace whatsoever with the Longhorns this year. All that being said, hey, K-State's put up 70-plus in 3 straight themselves, and they're not generally a 70-point team. So you got two teams that are philosophically the same. They're predicated on defense, but yet the offenses have come around. Now, in that first Kansas State-Texas game, the 67-47 20-point blowout that you were talking about, I think that in that one it's somewhat important to note that for Kansas State, you're operating without Dean Wade in that game. So that's a big boost. We know that since he's come back, Kansas State is 8-1 in the 9 games since Dean Wade returned. So Texas didn't have to contend with him. Texas was real good on the interior in that game, and they shot lights out, 52% from three-point range. Things that you just don't expect to recur here in this game. However, at home, you have to give Texas a little bit of a home floor edge. Kansas State, to me, has been through, and all these Big 12 teams, they go through a ringer of sorts, but starting with last Monday night when K-State, or Tuesday when K-State beat Kansas at home, that was a big win. Come back against Baylor on Saturday and get the benefit of Baylor not having their 2 starting guards available for that game and really struggle but get the win in the end. Now on to Texas. I just wonder if these 3 games in a row aren't going to wear a little bit on K-State. I didn't play the game, probably won't play the game as much as I would like to go ahead and play over such a short total. I'm not sure either one of these teams can be trusted to continue on the offensive patterns that they've had the last 2-3 games. So for me, it's a pass both ways, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Texas win and cover here. I think that they're playing well at the right time, and any kingpin in the Big 12 when they go on the road, certainly vulnerable to 6 or 7 opponents in this league. K-State at 8-2 is now the kingpin of the Big 12, and I think they're a bit vulnerable here tonight against Texas.
Robbie, that was a 9 p.m. tip. We also got another 9 p.m. tip to end it last game up. He's Robbie Vino. You can follow him on Twitter at RobVinoSports. It's also $2 Tuesday at Sportsmemo.com. Top play up there, 5%er in the Michigan State-Wisconsin game on ESPN2 for just $2. Great day to check out the website. Robbie, we got Duke, Louisville to end it here. Blue Devils, we were talking off air, man. Best team in college basketball, arguably the best team in college basketball. Tough team to beat. Tough matchup for Virginia. Virginia's a good squad. They're not playing in this game. Duke is at Louisville, 152.5 the total. Ultimate equalizer here, though, Robbie. 8.5 or 9 on the road in the ACC. I don't want to say it's a tough ask, but it makes it an interesting handicap. How would you look to bet Duke, Louisville? Yeah,
boy, Louisville has shown up all season long, Drew, and maybe they've shown up a year too soon, because I don't think anybody saw this coming from Chris Mack's team in his first year. I think that's a tribute to how good of a head coach he is. It's a tribute to the players buying in quickly, and you watch that game Saturday, which they wound up losing in overtime to a surging Florida State team, and you just see that they're relentless. Louisville's absolutely relentless, and for Duke to have to go through the game that they went through in Charlottesville prior to this one, certainly Duke got off to a quick start in that game and weren't severely threatened at any point by the Cavaliers on Saturday. But still, that's a game where you have to come with supreme focus and you have to be ready. and now to ask Duke to come back and do it again against a team that's, just off of a tough overtime loss, and they're at home, and they do have the pieces. It's not like, Louisville has to severely overachieve with their parts to get a win here. They've got good pieces on this team. They can shoot the three-pointer by all means. They've got good inside play. They're good on the defensive end. We know that Chris Mack teams, generally speaking, over the course of his career, are very good on the defensive end. So I think this is a tough matchup for Duke. I really do. I would look to take the points here with Louisville. Not saying they'll win the game, which they very well could, but I just think when you ask all the freshmen to game in, game out, we just talked about what a grinder the Big 12 is. Now, the Big 12 is a grinder, but they don't have the top half of a conference that the Atlantic Coast has. And when you have to go through these teams one after the other every couple of days, it does become tough. The freshmen are great for sure. Williamson, Reddish, Jones, Barrett, the whole group. But I really could see Louisville playing this game extremely close tonight. We talked a little bit, you and I, before we came on the podcast, about just what a difficult matchup Duke is for Virginia. As great as Virginia is defensively, Duke has that kind of combination of up-tempo ability, plus they're able to shoot the three, which they did the other day tremendously. Can they bring all that to the table back-to-back here against a team that's going to be waiting? Duke wears a giant target on their chest right now. I'm not so sure. I think this is one of the live underdogs here tonight. I think Louisville plus the points, at least worth a small look.
Robbie, good breakdown of all 5 games. What do you got on tap for tonight as far as your plays and I guess how are you watching the games? NBA, college basketball, where are you putting your focus?
Yeah, tonight the 4-percenter that you mentioned, Drew, comes from mid-major action. The mid-major board has been really good to me this season, and sometimes it escapes us here on the show. We really don't talk a lot about mid-major basketball on the podcast. That's just due to a shortage of time and availability on our part, but I'm sure when we get to conference tournaments we will. I look to the mid-majors here tonight in college action. NBA will go up. I do have a play, 90% sure I have a play here. The reason why I wait so late in the day for those who purchase the service with NBA is you just never know who's in lineups until mid-afternoon on the East Coast, early afternoon on the Pacific Coast, and sometimes later. So kind of wait it out just to make sure everything's in line. But we will have NBA going up as well. As you talked about, Drew, great run in NBA action so far this season, at least since late October. And one more time, I'll say it again for anybody looking. You heard me analyze Wisconsin, Michigan State. If you want to win and cash a ticket on Wisconsin and Michigan State, then go ahead and purchase Drew's 5%er here on $2 Tuesday. Can't go wrong.
All right. Can't guarantee anything. I like it a lot. Obviously, bet it personally. So, check it out. $2 Tuesday up at sportsmemo.com. Robbie Vino, also a great choice. 3, 7, 30, 90, full year, all access, all available there at Sportsmemo, the website. Guys, we'll be back tomorrow talking soccer betting with Nick Borman. Also, NHL podcast on Thursday, and then Friday will be the Look Ahead's college basketball with Teddy Covers and Robbie Vino, both Friday night college basketball action and Saturday. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Best of luck with your bets, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.